The drawer in my bedroom has been locked longer than some marriages, and tonight, I'm going to show you why. My hands don't look like they used to. The skin is thin, the veins are louder than my voice. But they still remember the shape of this key. In our family, this drawer was a rule. Not a preference. Not a suggestion. A rule. Nobody touches that drawer, my mother used to say, and even after she was gone, the word stayed. Like a stain you can't scrub out. My grandchildren thought it was a funny little quirk, Grandma's dramatic drawer. My children never joked about it. They grew up in a house where certain questions were met with silence so heavy you could feel it press on your chest. And if you're wondering why I'm opening it now, it's because last Tuesday I forgot my own address for 3 full minutes. Not my childhood address. Not the one from 50 years ago. The one I've written on checks and prescription forms 1,000 times. I stood at the pharmacy counter, staring at the clerk's pen, and my mind went as smooth and blank as a wiped plate. My daughter, Ellen, laughed it off in the car. "Mom, you're tired. You've been stressed." But later that night, I sat on the edge of my bed and watched the moonlight land on this lock, and something inside me said, "Time." Because this is what I know, secrets don't stay buried. They just wait for someone weaker to carry them. And I'm getting tired. So here is my promise to you, and to them, before this night is over, I will unlock this drawer and tell you about the brother none of my grandchildren ever knew existed. But I need you to understand something first. This isn't a story about a simple lie. This is a story about a whole person being erased, and a family learning they helped hold the eraser. Ellen is in the living room right now with her husband, my grandson Luke, and my granddaughter Avery. They think we're going through my things because I'm downsizing. That's the kind word people use when they don't want to say what they mean. They mean, preparing. And I am. Just not in the way they think. I bring the dresser key out from the back of my sewing tin, tucked beneath old buttons and a thimble that never fit right. The tin smells like metal and dust and the peppermint candies I used to hide from myself. I close my fingers around the key and it bites my skin, as if it's been waiting to be held again. Do you know how strange it is to hold a secret in your hand? Not in your heart, in your hand. Cold. Solid. Specific. I walk into the living room and set the drawer, yes, the whole drawer, right on the coffee table. They stare at it like it's an animal that might move. Luke clears his throat. "Grandma, what is that?" Avery leans forward. "Is that the drawer?" "The drawer?" Ellen doesn't speak at first. My daughter has my eyes, and she's always had my instincts, too. She watches my face like she's trying to read the weather. "I need you to listen," I tell them. My voice comes out softer than I want. "And I need you not to interrupt me until I'm done." Her husband, Mark, nods once. He's a good man. That matters later. I slide the key into the lock. It resists at first, like it's holding its breath. And then, there it is. The click. Small sound. Big life. For a moment, no one moves. Not even me. Because once you open something like this, you don't get to close your eyes again. I pull. The drawer glides out with a tired little groan, like an old knee. The smell hits first. Paper that's been folded and refolded. Ink that's aged into the page. And cedar, warm and sharp, like the inside of a hope chest. Avery whispers, "It smells like Grandpa's closet." I swallow. "Yes," I say. It does. On top is a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. Under that, a small brown envelope. Under that, a photograph so tiny you could lose it in your palm. Luke reaches, then stops himself, remembering my rule about interrupting. His hand hovers in the air like a question. I pick up the photograph. The edges are worn white. It shows a boy on a porch step, squinting into the sun. His hair is too neat, like someone combed it hard because they were nervous. He's holding a model airplane, the cheap kind made of balsa wood and paint that chips if you breathe on it. Avery frowns. Who is that? I look down at the boy's face, and for half a second I'm 10 years old again, tasting summer dust. That, I say, is my brother. Silence lands. Not gentle silence. The kind that knocks the air out of the room. Ellen's mouth opens, then closes again. Luke's eyebrows lift like he thinks he misheard. I don't have an uncle, Ellen says finally, and the words come out sharp because shock can sound like anger. I nod. You should have. Mark shifts forward. Your brother, as in, your mother's child? I keep my eyes on the photograph. Same mother. Same father. Same house. Avery's voice is small. Why didn't you ever tell us? That question is a door, too. And if I open it, everything behind it comes rushing out. So I take a breath, and I begin where I always begin when I can't stand the present. In 1954, I say, our house had a back porch that sagged in the middle. Samuel was 2 years older than me. His name was Samuel James Harper. He whistled through his front teeth when he was thinking, and he always smelled like sun-warmed soap because he washed his hands more than any boy I'd ever seen. We shared a room with slanted ceilings and one window that rattled every time a truck went by. At night, he'd tap twice on the wall, our little code. Tap tap meant, "Are you awake?" And I would tap back. Then he'd tell me stories in a whisper. Not fairy tales. Real stories. The kind children make up when they're trying to make sense of the adults. Someday, he told me once, we'll have a house where doors don't slam. What makes doors slam? I asked. He said, men who think they own the air. I didn't fully understand it then. But I remembered it. Because Samuel always talked like he was listening to something the rest of us couldn't hear. Our father, my real father, died when I was 6. Heart trouble. Quick and cruel. After the funeral, my mother wore black so long the neighbors started acting like it was her skin. For a while, it was just the 3 of us. Samuel would chop kindling too big for his arms. I would bring him water in a chipped cup, proud as a little waitress. And my mother would stand at the sink, staring out the window as if grief might come back and knock again. Then Harold Grady came along. He was polite in public. He carried groceries. He fixed the porch step. But at night, when he thought no one was looking, he'd watch Samuel like he was a stray dog someone had let into the house. When Harold married my mother, the house changed. Not in big ways. In small rules. No running inside. No leaving shoes by the door. No talking back. And then the strangest rule of all, Samuel was not allowed to call my mother Mama in front of company. Call her Mrs. Grady, Harold said one afternoon, smiling while he said it. Samuel's hands tightened on the broom handle. She's my... Harold's smile stayed. His eyes did not. Mrs. Grady. That was the first time I saw my mother choose silence over truth right in front of us. She didn't correct Harold. She just turned back to her dishwater, shoulders stiff, like if she kept moving she wouldn't fall apart. Do you know what it does to a child, watching an adult swallow their own life? Samuel started spending more time in the shed behind the house, carving scraps of wood into planes and boats. He'd tuck me inside with him, on an upturned crate, and we'd listen to the rain hit the tin roof. That drawer in the kitchen sticks, he told me once. What drawer? The one with the knives, he said. It sticks when you pull it. That's how you know someone's angry before they even speak. He was learning the house the way you learn a storm. And storms, sooner or later, always arrive. The day Samuel disappeared started like any other. Toast smell. Radio low. The neighbor's dog barking like it was late for work. I was tying my shoe when I heard Harold say, "Get your things. You're going." Samuel's voice came back steady. Where? Harold answered, "Someplace that can handle you." I followed the sound to the hallway. My mother stood in the doorway to the parlor, wringing a dish towel until her knuckles turned white. She wouldn't meet my eyes. A suitcase sat by Samuel's feet. Not ours. Newer. Borrowed. Samuel looked at my mother and said, very quietly, "Tell me you agreed to this." My mother's lips moved like she was trying to form a word that wouldn't cut her. And Harold stepped in front of her like a wall. "Your mother wants peace." Samuel's eyes flicked to me. I'll never forget that look. Not fear. Not even anger. It was the look someone gives you when they're memorizing your face because they don't trust the future. "Rosie," he said, and my nickname felt like a hand reaching for me, "Go get the blue plane." "The blue." "The one I made," he said. "From the shed." "Bring it." I ran so fast my socks slipped on the kitchen linoleum. I yanked open the back door, tore across the yard, and threw myself into the shed. The smell of sawdust and oil swallowed me whole. I found the plane on the shelf, balsa wood painted a brave, chipped blue, with a tiny white star on the wing. It was lighter than it looked, like it could actually fly if you believed hard enough. When I ran back, panting, the front door was open. Harold was already halfway down the steps with Samuel behind him, and my mother stood in the doorway like she'd been nailed there. "Wait!" I shouted, holding the plane out like an offering. Samuel turned. For a moment, his face softened. He stepped toward me, just one step. Harold grabbed his arm. Hard. Samuel's jaw clenched. His eyes burned. And then Harold said the sentence that split my childhood clean in two, "That boy is not your family anymore." My mother flinched as if she'd been slapped. But she still didn't speak. Samuel stared at her one last time. "Say it," he whispered. "Say he's lying." My mother's mouth opened. And what came out wasn't a word. It was a sound, small, broken, trapped. Then she turned her face away. Samuel nodded once, like he'd been handed a verdict. He reached out and took the plane from my hands. His fingers brushed mine, warm, quick. "Keep your door unlocked," he whispered to me. "Not your drawer. Your door." Then he walked to the car. The door shut. The engine started. And that was it. For days afterward, I kept expecting him to come back the way kids expect sunlight after rain, automatic, guaranteed. I set an extra plate at dinner once. Harold didn't yell. He just slid it into the sink and let it clatter loud enough to make my mother jump. When I asked where Samuel was, my mother said, "He's getting help." When I asked what kind of help, she said, "Don't make this harder." A week later, the shed was cleaned out. The scraps of wood were gone. The tools were rearranged. Even the smell felt different, like someone had tried to scrub away the evidence of a child. And then a new rule arrived, delivered like a prayer you weren't allowed to question. "We do not speak that name." What name? Samuel. Do you know what it's like, hearing a name become forbidden? It turns into a bruise in your mouth. Every time you almost say it, you taste pain. I tried to resist in small ways. I hid the blue plane under my mattress. I whispered his name into my pillow at night, just to prove it still existed. Then, one afternoon, a letter came in the mail. I remember because the envelope was thick and official, and Harold's fingers went still when he saw the return address. He opened it at the kitchen table. My mother stood behind him, twisting her wedding ring until her skin turned red. I watched from the doorway, heart knocking. Harold read silently, then folded the letter with slow care, too much care. And he put it in his inside jacket pocket as if it were money. "What is it?" I asked. Harold looked at me and said, "It's nothing that concerns you." But my mother's eyes filled. Not with tears that fall. Tears that stay trapped because you've trained them to. That was the day I understood, Samuel wasn't just gone. Something was being managed. Years passed like that, managed. We moved to a different part of town. Harold got promoted. My mother hosted church ladies and smiled until her cheeks looked painful. And any time I brought up Samuel, Harold would do something small and cruel. He'd forget to pick me up. He'd throw away a favorite book. He never left bruises anyone could see. By the time I was 15, I had learned the family skill, pretending. But pretending doesn't erase love. It just forces it underground, where it grows sharp edges. At 19, I found work at the local library. One rainy afternoon, a woman came in asking for records, birth records. She wore gloves, even indoors, and her perfume smelled like mothballs and lilacs. I helped her at the desk, and when she leaned close, she said in a low voice, "You're Lillian Harper's girl, aren't you?" My spine went cold. Yes. She nodded toward my name tag. Rose. Then she paused. "Did you ever have a brother?" My mouth opened, and Samuel's name almost walked out. But behind the woman, in the reflection of the library window, I saw Harold's car passing on the street. Just a glimpse of it. But it was enough. I shook my head. No, I lied. And I hated myself for it all the way home. That night, I climbed into the attic and pulled down a box Harold never bothered to label. Inside were the things he thought time would rot away, a ribbon-tied stack of letters. A birth record copy. A school report with Samuel's neat handwriting. My hands trembled so badly I could barely untie the ribbon. The first letter was addressed to my mother. The second to Harold. The third was addressed to me. The handwriting was Samuel's. Not a child scrawl anymore. Teenage. Careful. Like he didn't want to be accused of anything. I should have opened it right then. But the attic floor creaked, and I froze. Below me, Harold coughed, a simple sound that felt like a warning shot. So I did the cowardly thing. I put the letters back. I carried the whole bundle down to my room and locked it in this drawer. Not to hide Samuel from you. To hide Samuel from Harold. And then I did what families like ours do best. I built a life on top of the buried part. I married your grandfather. I had Ellen. I made Thanksgiving dinners and birthday cakes and took photographs where everyone smiled. But every so often, on a quiet night, I'd unlock the drawer just enough to let the cedar smell out. Like I was cracking a window for a ghost. Here's the part that hurts the most. I told myself silence was protection. Protection for my mother, who looked smaller every year. Protection for Ellen, who deserved a childhood without Harold's shadow. Protection for me, because the truth felt too big to carry in the daylight. But what if silence wasn't protection at all? What if it was just obedience that grew older? Back in my living room, Ellen is staring at the photograph as if it might change shape. You're saying, you had letters. Proof. All this time. Her voice isn't cruel. It's wounded. I nod. And I'm going to show you what I never showed anyone. My fingers lift the brown envelope. It's sealed, but the flap is soft from age. On the front, in faded ink, for Rosie. When you're safe. Avery whispers, "Did you ever open it?" I swallow. Not until right now. Luke leans forward, elbows on knees. Why would he write that? I glance at Ellen. Because he knew who our stepfather was. I slide my finger under the flap. The paper sighs as it opens, like it's relieved. Inside is a letter and something folded in tissue. I pull out the tissue bundle first. It's a small handkerchief, square and plain, and when I unfold it, a cedar scent rises, stronger than before, like a door to the past. In one corner, stitched in careful blue thread, S.H. Mark exhales. He kept this all these years? No, I say. I did. I hold the letter with both hands. My thumbs cover the first line, like I'm stalling. Then I read. Rosie, it begins, if you're reading this, it means he can't stop you anymore. Ellen's breath catches. Luke's face tightens. Avery presses her knuckles to her mouth. And I keep reading, because stopping now would be another kind of erasure. Samuel wrote about the place they sent him first, a boys' home 2 counties away. He wrote about the way the staff called them cases. He wrote about learning to keep his eyes down because looking too directly invited trouble. Then the letter shifts, and the truth sharpens. He told everyone I was unstable, Samuel wrote. He told them I threatened you. He told them I was dangerous. I never did. I would never. I stop reading for a moment because my throat closes. Was Samuel angry as a boy? Yes. But dangerous? No. He was the kind of boy who rescued worms off the sidewalk after rain. Ellen's voice shakes. Who is he? I don't look up. Harold. Samuel wrote that Harold offered my mother a choice. Sign the papers and keep the marriage, keep the house, keep respectability, or refuse, and Harold would leave, taking his money and his reputation, and telling the whole town she'd raised a troubled son. And my mother, my tired, grieving mother, did what scared people often do. She chose the option that sounded like survival. Luke whispers, so it was an adoption? I nod once. My jaw aches. A forced one. Samuel wrote about the day a couple visited the home. A woman with a careful smile. A man with a watch that glinted when he moved his wrist. Samuel wrote, they wanted a boy with no past. He said he tried to tell them he had a sister. The staff corrected him. You used to. Ellen stands up so abruptly her chair scrapes the floor. Mom, she says, and her voice is too loud for the room, you're telling me your brother was sold off like furniture? Mark rises halfway, instinctively calming. Ellen. No, she snaps, then turns to me again. And you let us live our whole lives not knowing? Do you hear how pain changes a person's tone? How it makes love sound like accusation? I set the letter down gently, like it might tear. I didn't hide him because I didn't love him, I say. I hid him because I was afraid you'd learn how easy it is for a family to agree to a lie. Avery's eyes are wet. Did he ever try to find you? I tap the ribbon-tied bundle in the drawer. That's what those are. I untie the ribbon with slow fingers. Letters spill slightly, edges worn. Some are opened. Many are not. The sight of them makes Ellen cover her mouth like she might be sick. Those were addressed to you, she says. To me, I correct softly. To my mother. To him. All of us. Over years. And here is the unforgivable part, the part one wish I could change with prayer or apology. Harold intercepted Samuel's letters. He kept them. He locked Samuel out, not just from our house, but from time itself. Luke picks up one envelope without opening it. Postmarked 1962, he reads. He wrote for years. Yes, I say. And Harold kept every proof that Samuel still existed. Ellen's face goes pale in a way I've only seen once before, when she was in labor, and the pain turned her brave. Where is Samuel now? She asks. Is he alive? I close my eyes. I didn't know, I admit. Not for a long time. Because the truth is, I tried to search once. After Harold died, finally, quietly, in a hospital bed that smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee, I took the letters out. I read them all in one night until sunrise. In the last opened one, Samuel included a return address. Not the boys' home. Not an agency. A real street. A real town. A real life. I wrote back. My hands were shaking the same way they are now. I wrote, Samuel, it's Rosie. I'm here. I'm sorry. Please. And the letter came back 3 weeks later with a stamp, returned to sender. No longer at this address. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at that stamp until the words blurred. Then I folded the envelope and put it in this drawer, and I locked it again. Because what do you do with grief that has no body? What do you do with love that can't find its place to land? Now, in this room, Ellen sinks back into her chair. The anger drains into something older, mourning. Mark puts his hand on her shoulder. She doesn't brush it off this time. Luke asks the question I've avoided my whole life. Grandma, why didn't you tell Mom when she was growing up? Why not earlier? I look at my daughter. Because your great-grandmother begged me not to. Ellen's eyes widen. Grandma knew. Of course she knew, I say. She signed the papers. Avery's voice cracks. Did she ever regret it? I reach into the drawer and pull out one more item, a small, folded note, written on thin stationery. This is her answer, I say. I unfold it carefully. It's my mother's handwriting, shaky at the end of her life. Rosie, it says, I hear his footsteps in my sleep. I did what I thought would keep you safe. I don't know if God calls that love or fear. Ellen lets out a sound, half sob, half laugh of disbelief. So she lived with it. Yes, I whisper. And so did I. Luke looks at the letters again. So what now? That question hangs there, daring us. What do you do with a missing person who was never supposed to be missing? I straighten the photograph on the table so everyone can see Samuel's face clearly. We bring him back, I say. Even if it's late. Even if it hurts. Mark clears his throat. We can search. There are records. Registries. People do this. Ellen wipes her cheeks with the back of her hand. I don't even know his birthday. I slide the birth record copy toward her. Now you do. Avery reads softly, like she's afraid to break it. Samuel James Harper. The name fills the room like a candle being lit. A name spoken out loud can undo a lifetime of silence. Over the next week, my house turns into something it never was before, honest. There are papers on the table. Phones charging. Quiet arguments about dates and towns. And through it all, that cedar smell, still there, like Samuel is sitting with us, listening. Ellen makes calls with a steadiness I didn't have at her age. Luke searches records late at night, the blue light of his laptop painting his face the way moonlight used to paint mine. Avery, sweet Avery, prints the tiny photograph and frames it. She sets it on my mantel next to pictures of birthdays Samuel never attended. And every time I walk past, my throat tightens, but in a different way now. One Friday afternoon, Mark comes in from the porch holding his phone like it's fragile. I think we found something, he says. Ellen stands so fast she bumps the chair. What? Mark turns the screen toward us. It's an obituary from 10 years ago. Samuel James, different last name, same birth date. Same town from the return address. Ellen makes a sound like she's been punched. Luke reads quietly, eyes scanning. It says he's survived by a daughter. Avery whispers, a cousin. And just like that, the missing piece of our family stops being history and becomes a living person. Do you reach out? After all this time, do you knock on a stranger's door and say, hello, I think your father was stolen from us? Ellen stares at the screen, jaw set. We do, she says. We have to. We find the daughter's name, Evelyn. We find a number that might belong to her. Ellen holds the phone, thumb hovering, like the button is hot. I cover her hand with mine. If she hangs up, I tell her, we will still have done the right thing. Ellen presses call. The ringing feels like a heartbeat in the room. Once. Twice. 3 times. A woman answers. Hello? Ellen's voice breaks immediately. My name is Ellen. I think my mother is your father's sister. Silence. Then, my father didn't have a sister. Ellen swallows hard. He did. He was forced away. We have letters. We have his photograph. I can hear Evelyn breathing through the phone. And then she says something that makes my knees go weak even though I'm sitting down. He kept a cedar handkerchief in his dresser, she whispers. He said it smelled like home. Avery covers her face and cries. Luke stares at the floor like he's trying not to fall through it. Ellen closes her eyes, and when she speaks again, her voice is steadier. We didn't know, she says. But we want to know you. Evelyn's exhale is shaky. I've waited my whole life for someone to say his first name like it mattered. That night, we set a place at the table. Not because Samuel will walk through the door, but because we finally understand the shape of the absence we've been living around. I take the tiny photograph and pass it to Ellen. She holds it the way you hold something that should have been yours all along. And I realize something: truth doesn't just reveal. It returns. We gather in the living room again, the same coffee table, the same unlocked drawer. And I tell them one more thing I've never said out loud. I was the last person Samuel touched, I whisper. When he took the plane from my hands. Avery reaches over and laces her fingers through mine. What happened to the plane? She asks. I open the drawer's bottom corner and pull out a flattened piece of blue wood, paint-chipped, star-faded. I broke it years ago, I admit. Not on purpose. But I kept every piece. Some love doesn't fade, it just waits in the dark. Ellen shakes her head slowly. All this time, we thought our family was complete. I look at my daughter, my grown child, still my child, and I say, we were missing a whole person. And we felt it anyway. Luke asks, do you forgive Grandma Lillian? The question is sharp, but it's not meant to wound. It's meant to find a place to set the anger down. I think of my mother at the sink, hands in dishwater, swallowing her own life. I think of Harold's smile, the kind that never reached his eyes. And I think of Samuel, walking to that car with his back straight like dignity was the only thing he could carry. I don't excuse her, I say carefully. But I understand her fear. And I refuse to inherit it. That's what this is, in the end. Not just a secret revealed. A fear refused. A week later, Evelyn mails us a photograph. Her father, my brother, older now, smiling beside a Christmas tree. And in his hands, held gently like a relic, is a blue model airplane. Not the same one. But the same idea. Ellen presses the photo to her chest and sobs, not quietly. And for the first time, I let myself sob with her. Not in the bathroom. Not into a pillow. Out loud, in front of my family. We don't get a perfect ending. There is no scene where Samuel walks in and forgives us and everything feels stitched up. Real life doesn't hand you that kind of closure. But we do something that feels holy in its simplicity. We speak his name at the table. We add him to the family tree. We tell his story to the younger ones so it can't be stolen again. And the drawer? The drawer stays open now. Not because it no longer hurts, but because it no longer controls us. If you've ever had a family secret tucked away like a blade, you know what I mean. How many of us were raised with locked drawers we didn't choose? Before I go, let me ask you something. If you found a truth like this in your own family, would you open it? Or would you put the key back and pretend you never saw it? If this story moved you, please tap like. It helps more than you'd think, and it tells YouTube to share more quiet, human stories like this from dust of old days. And if you want more grandmother-style storytelling, family mysteries, hidden truths, and the kind of memories that smell like cedar, subscribe to Dust of Old Days and stay with me a while. I spent decades keeping one door locked. Now I keep it open, so he can finally come home in the only way he can, through us.